Ok, merci beaucoup. Désolé, il faut qu'on avance un tout petit peu, on a pris du retard déjà. Alors, je vous présente, pour ceux qui ne la connaissent pas encore, Barbara Padalino. Je ne sais pas si il y en a qui étaient déjà là quand elle a fait la conférence le 11 septembre dernier. Non, tu vois. Oh, new people, c'est bien. Donc, elle va parler en anglais, mais vous avez tous la traduction. Hein. Elle est vétérinaire aussi. Bon, il y a quasiment que des vétérinaires aujourd'hui, donc pas besoin de répéter beaucoup. Elle est professeure à l'université de Bologne. Elle a fait son doctorat en Australie. C'est original. Hein. Elle est spécialisée pour le transport des animaux, pas seulement des chevaux, mais de tous les animaux. Elle est dans plusieurs commissions au niveau européen. C'est vraiment son sujet de prédilection. Mais elle fait partie de plusieurs groupes scientifiques, oui, au niveau européen. Et actuellement, elle est professeure et chercheuse en sciences animales à l'université de Bologne, en Italie. If you want to say more, please.
No.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Je suis désolé, on fera un reboot de tout le système, mais ça prend 10 minutes, un quart d'heure. Donc on le fera à la pause après la conférence de Barbara. Il va falloir suivre un petit peu, mais c'est une professionnelle, j'ai pas peur.
I hope so. Okay, thank you first of all to Jill for the invitation, and it's really an honor for me to be here, and I hope that you are going to enjoy the presentation. I thought we had a tough start with the regulation, and so I tried to kind of really set the scene for the journey and try to make stuff as easy as possible so that you can understand. So we really would start with the basis. So the first question is, what is welfare? Then how can we actually measure welfare? And then I'm trying to explain you the difference about this animal welfare indicator, what is an ABM, so animal-based indicator, and what is an environmental-based measure, so EBM. Then I'm going to explain you about the only method which has been validated so far for assessing welfare, which is the IENA method, and what we are actually using right now at EFSA. EFSA is the European Food Safety Authority. I'm a member of the panel on animal health and welfare, and we do this as risk analysis. So the name sounds really difficult, but then I'll try to explain what actually we try to do. And yeah, definitely our aim here, and as Fabian was saying, is actually, I think we all want the same. We want to work for safeguarding and enhancing animal welfare. So, and I think I really thank Gilles, because I think days like today are really, really useful. So first of all, can you give me an example on a horse welfare issue? So, you know, the typical thing that you are going to point the finger to your neighbor, clearly, never to yourself. So, well, you are really good at pointing finger. That's really bad. So what is really bad for you? What, I think we heard already something. So what is a welfare issue for you? Don't be shy. So, yeah, what do you think? So the lady, yeah. Yeah, what do you think? What is the welfare issues for you? Stereotypy. So if you see a horse which is weaving, then you say, that is a problem. Okay. What else? What is a welfare issue for you? The guy in blue. What do you think? Yeah, you. Okay, so beating it. Okay, so yeah, so stereotypy was the first answer. The second answer is, let's say, cruel methods, so whipping. What else? What would you say it's a welfare issue, something that may concern, like, you know, what you expected to find on a newspaper? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so housing dimension, space to like a limited space allowance, not compliance with a good regulation. Yeah, I mean, I guess I tried to summarize in the slide, if it really come up. So what are some of the most common welfare issues? So definitely we can see improper training methods, housing method, and we clearly have some slaughtering problem, transport problem, then like the, horses be like too skinny or too fat, and then carriage and so on. But what I think it's important to say today that we are really usually really good at pointing finger, but what is welfare? What is welfare for you? So we hear, but what we are really talking about today. So what is welfare for you? The lady, yeah, what do you think is welfare? Yeah, don't be shy. So, sorry, this is my method, so I shake you off, it's 9 o'clock, come on.
Le bien-être, c'est de ne pas être en état de stress, c'est de pouvoir avoir accès à tout ce qu'il nous faut pour vivre,
Okay, so no
boire, à
stress.
manger, pouvoir avoir du contact avec d'autres personnes, d'autres qui font la même chose, pouvoir se reposer, enfin voilà, je sais pas.
Okay, that's good. So, yeah, I think it's a good definition that we got from our audience. Let's go back to science. So one of the first definition, well, this guy is quite famous, is Dr. Broom. He just said that the welfare of an animal is its state as regard its attempt to cope with its environment. So basically for Broom, an animal is in a welfare condition when it's able to cope. I like this term in English, to cope. So it's able to adapt. And basically, Brooms was saying that, if you know about stress, as long as an animal is able to adapt, so it's basically goes through an initial phase of stress, but then kind of is able to adapt, then is going to be in a good welfare condition. However, 6 years after, Duncan came and said, no, sorry, that's wrong, because neither health nor lack of stress nor fitness is necessary and or sufficient to conclude that an animal had good welfare. So welfare depends upon what animal feels, and that's come the problems. And then, in the last 30 years, scientists like me, Emanuela, and many others, then trying to figure it out, what make horse happy. And, John Webster said, welfare is actually, that the horse needs to be happy. But, happiness is almost a philosophical concept, and it's really hard because what makes me happy probably doesn't make Emanuela happy. So how actually we pretend to be able to say what makes horse happy? And it's really hard to say, and it's probably it's in between. Well, basically a horse it could be happy if he's physically fit, if he's mentally in a good status, and then he's able to express some of the behavioral needs. So what is really needs, which is different from, be able to do natural behavior. So what is actually animal welfare? So welfare is the term that describes a potentially measurable quality of a living animal at a particular time and a scientific concept. So yeah, definitely we are not able to assess happiness, but we are able, possibly, we are trying to become good at this, try to understand and measure the quality of life of the animal. So basically, welfare is a way, and we try to measure the quality of life. And what we should try to give to our animal is a life worth living, okay? But not what we think it's a life worth living for the animal, because whatever we think we like, it's really unlikely that actually also the horses like. So we really need to learn to understand and take information from the animal and learn how they perceive their life through their own eyes, through the basically from them, and this is why we use the term animal-based measure, because come from the animal. And what I want to point is that at the end of the day, a horse is a horse. So the welfare needs, what we need to give to the animal, are the same. It doesn't matter if it's a horse kept for meat or a horse kept for the Olympic Games. And I know this is shocking, but that's it. So like, you know, if we really we care about animals and we care about horses, then we needed to make sure that, you know, we don't treat animals differently depending on their category or their own value, because that is a real welfare issues. The fact that, like, you know, raising horses until they raise and they earn 1 million per day, they get everything, then end of life, oh, go to the slaughter, or like, you know, whatever, I don't care. That is a welfare issue. So now, go to the text. What do you think? Is this good welfare? So who is for yes? So it's the ponies in the snow. Okay, who is for no? So no, no. Who doesn't know? Okay. Can I just know why you think, one person from the yes, why do you think that is a good welfare? Who was for yes? Yeah, why do you think it's good? Yeah.
It's good because the horse got fell and big hair and doesn't look really sad or something. And I think it's natural for a horse to be outside in the winter.
Okay, who is for no? Yeah, why is no? Oh, wait, oh, sorry, I'm too... I make Gilles work.
Well, we can see it's snowing. The horse will get wet. He will get cold, so he's not covered by the blanket.
Okay,
It's not good.
good. And who is for I don't know? Okay, good. It's fair enough. What do you think this one? So we have horses kept in group. The other one was by himself, and we heard that they need to be in group. They have even a baby, so like, you know, that's all green. So is this a good welfare? Who is for yes? Okay. Everyone is shy. Now I don't ask question now. Who is for yes? Who is for no? Okay, she's for no. Who doesn't know? Okay, here's a more. Yeah, those are mares kept for meat. Okay, so they just bred for meat, and the little lovely foal is going to the slaughter when he is 11 months. What about this? Is this good welfare? Who is for yes? I'm a trotter. Yes, yes. They need to raise. Who is for no? Okay, many no. And who doesn't know? Okay, so good. It's a more question side. Sorry, I tricked you. Because welfare is a science, and measuring welfare is really difficult. So please, never, never do these things that you point your finger on a picture and you think you are able to say is good or is bad. And even often stop calling official veterinarian, see one animal on, you know, because you are not able to really assess welfare at the first look. Because it's really complicated matter, and actually, this is why you are here. And to assess welfare in a scientific way, we really need to have good welfare indicators. They need to be measurable, so they need to be objective. This is why whatever I think, whatever you think, it's an opinion. We are not talking about the welfare of the animal. Need to be valid. What does valid mean? So they need to be specific, they need to be sensitive, they need to be accurate, they need to be repeatable. So it means if I assess, and Alice assess, and Emmanuel assess, we'll all end up with the same thing. So this is why it's hard. So this is why they need to be reliable. So, they are reliable if they are valid and repeatable and so on. And they need to be feasible. And that is a problem. So what feasible means? An indicator of welfare which it needs to be something which we can apply without hurt the animal and need to be easy to do in a different situation. So that during an inspection, it's easy to assess and practical. We don't need a lab or 3 days to have an answer because this means feasible. And so what type of indicators we can use? So definitely, since it's a multi-dimension, because we said health and physical and behavior, we need more indicators together, having a multidisciplinary approach. And we tend to use behavior because clearly it's easy, we can read the behavior of the animal without touching the animal, and it's good also for untamed horses that we cannot touch. However, behavior is not an exact science. I am a behavioralist, and I'm sorry to say that, it's not, because often the behavior can have 3 or 4 different meanings. This is why behavior needs to back up with some more reliable indicator like physiology, endocrinology. And often we can even use immunology parameter because, if an animal is in a poor welfare, in a poor health, the immune system often doesn't work. So these immunological parameters can be indirect indicators of welfare. However, so what about those indicators? So we can use indirect measure, so what I called before EBM, environmental-based measure, which usually are resources-based, so is the food, the water available, or management-based, how many times do you feed your horses, and so on. How much space does the horse have? How many times, in what way you train your horses? We call it indirect because you can see they do not come from the animal, okay? So it's wherever it's kind of around, it's telling about the environmental, this is why we call it EBM, environmental-based measure. Instead, basically the direct measure we call ABM, so they come from the animal, and basically they're usually behavior, physiology, health parameter, but also production. Why production? Because health, welfare, and production are really interconnected, and often a poor performance in your horse is actually the first sign of something wrong in often just the welfare of the animal. So this is why, if you see a drop in the performance, that probably should be kind of a first signs for you to say, oh, there's something wrong. Maybe I need to understand and assess the welfare condition of my horse. So how do I assess animal welfare? So scientist, an animal welfare scientist, and I spent basically probably the last 15 years of my life trying to look for these measurable, objective, valid indicators. It's not easy. And clearly, like, you know, the feasible part is also difficult because this, you know, I wanted something which is non-invasive. This is why I tried to collect, I don't know, saliva, hair, faces, semen. I have done questionnaire and all this. But, you know, I told you that those indicators need to be valid. So in my last 10 years, what I tried to do is try to validate those non-invasive parameters, comparing it with a gold standard, which is usually, I don't know, a diagnostic method, which is clearly more invasive. And thanks to me and all of my colleagues, nowadays we have many indicators which have been already validated and they are not invasive. But clearly, like, you know, I think there is lots of work still that needs to be done. So, how do we measure horse welfare? So I bet you are all familiar with the 5 freedom, which is, you know, kind of famous. So freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury, and disease, freedom to express normal behavior, freedom from fear and distress. They're quite really famous. However, you know, they are not really objective. So because how can I get a number for my freedom? You know, my statistical software doesn't work. So my statistical software like number, and I guess in particular when the official veterinarian has to put a fine, they really need the evidence. So the 5 freedom clearly, like, you know, it's a bit hard to use. And starting from the 5 freedom, which is clearly, I guess it's a Bible from wherever we start in welfare. There have been different projects. The European project that you're going to probably listen more about today is the Welfare Quality and IENA project. Basically starting from the 5 freedom were 4 principles. That is basically the good feeding, so feeding practice, good housing, good health, and appropriate behavior. And for each of these principles, there are 2 or more criteria. And for each criteria, there are some animal-based measures, which I'm going to present you. Obviously, do not like IENA in Europe. I've been in Australia long enough to know that they don't like the European method because it's overcomplicated and it's really negative. Okay, we're really good at assessing negative welfare. So they're pushing more for positive welfare and they are looking for more positive welfare indicators. And so Professor Mellor has created these 5 domains, which at the end of the day is really similar because start from the 5 freedom, there are basically like, you know, 5 domain, and the difference is more in the IBM. So like, you know, they try to assess positive welfare in the sense like, you know, we're looking for prolonged hunger and what make a good indicator of a prolonged hunger. So maybe an animal be super, super skinny. Instead, they're looking for kind of satiety. So like, you know, an animal which got a good meal, what is going to do? What do you do when you got a really good meal on Sunday lunch? Yeah, rest, sleeping. So they try to look for this type of indicators. So like, you know, and you can see that the approach is kind of different. However, then comes the European Commission and they say, oh, but you know, we need to do regulation and we need to have number. And both IENA and the 5 domain method, they tend to assess welfare at a particular time. But, the official veterinarian has to put you a fine for whatever you have done, also in the past. And so far, whatever certification we are doing is still really subjective. Doesn't matter how good the assessor is, he still is a person. So what that should come, what the European Commission is working right now, is try to have some tools, such new technology, so that there is any historical data of whatever is your riding stable, and there are really objective number to measure the welfare. And so basically, there are still not many on the market, but basically the idea is try to have sensor on the animal able to collect. We're talking about freedom of movement. If I ask, how do you train your horses? And the people say, good. So clearly every day, 2 hours in the paddock, 1 hour, slow trot. And then you look at the horse, maybe the hoof is so long, it's clearly that the animal has been stuck in the box for 3 months. But clearly, becomes difficult to find. But if you have GPS data, then it's kind of objectively, this horse has been 3 days stuck in the box or 1 month stuck in the box. That's where we are going, so basically. But still, I think the road is long. So just to go back to some EBM, many of these concepts I'm just introducing, and then today you are going to listen from the others in details. So one of the principles is good feeding. It's clearly important. She was saying, so manger, no? It's in France, if I got it right. So it's really, really important. So what are the criteria? So appropriate nutrition, and one of the indicators is an ABM, is body condition score. What is a body condition score? It's basically the amount of fat the horse show. And that's a difficult question. Even all my students get it right, because body condition, no one really believes is fat, but it's just really the amount of fat the horse does have in this area. And what you do, you should be able to not only visualize, but you really need to touch the horses in this area and try to score and do an average of the 5 area. And then clearly it's a scale that goes from 1, which is really skinny when it comes back, to really obese, which is 5. And I wanted to make you understand that both these situations are a welfare concern. And honestly, in this period, we have a much more problem with obesity, with the super fatty horses, which cannot thermoregulate, they cannot exercise, than not the opposite one, at least in Europe. So then, instead, for the other criteria is absence of prolonged thirst, and some indicators are water availability. So, you should say and check if the water is always available, if it's also not only available, but also if it's clean. No? So. And recently, I also add the temperature, because often we have this nice bucket and it's in the sun. Okay? Have you ever tried to measure? It goes to 42, 43 degrees, and then yes, the water is available, it's clean, but the horse is not going to drink 42 boiled water. But what are all of those? Are ABM or EBM? What do you think? So this is water availability, the cleanness. What they are? EBM, or who is for EBM? Only 1, 2, 3? Or are they ABM, so animal-based? There are 2 options here. So water availability, water temperature, EBM, environmental-based, yes or no? Yes, they are EBM. Then we have the bucket test. So so which is actually, it's a way to try to understand from the animal, so it's an ABM, animal-based measure, try to understand if actually the horse is thirsty or not. So you just offer some fresh and clean water, and then you watch the behavior of the horses. If you take the time that the horse comes to drink and how much water drinks. However, it's still not super valid because clearly could be curiosity, or the taste of the water maybe is not familiar, and or horses, so at the moment the only really reliable and valid measure of thirst is the capillary refilling time. So basically, but you need to touch the horses, so it's not feasible. So you can see how sometimes an indicator can be more reliable but not feasible, and this is why I'm saying there is still lots of work to be done. And anyway, and you're going to listen a lot about this, it's not only the fact that we give or we provide feed and water, but often is also the way. I think the major risk factor for welfare of animals is in general humans. So we are the risk factor. And so basically the way how we give water, the feeding practice, they clearly matter. And then I'm sure that you are going to learn how we should actually provide the food and the water. So go back, so let's talk now about good housing, so second welfare principle. The criteria are comfort around resting, thermal comfort, and easy of movement. Where are the indicators? I can have space allowance, group size, activity record. I can ask to the owner, the type of life. So what are those? Are those EBM or ABM? EBM? Yes, they are all EBM. So they basically they don't really come from the horses. So it's the minimum space requirement. And how many horses are together? I'm recently obsessed about space allowance because, it's really matter. And even now when we say, horses need to be kept in group, but how much space for each horse when they are kept in group? And how big should be this group to make sure that the welfare is protected? And there's still not enough research to really give good number. They've been presented, but there is not really so much science behind those numbers, and lots of more research is needed on that. So what do you think could be a good ABM for good housing? What do you think? So these are all EBM, and we said, we don't like EBM a lot, so I want an ABM coming from the eyes of the horses. What do you think? What could I assess? I go around IENA, and I want to understand if the horses have good housing here. What should I look for? Yeah?
Maybe aggressive behavior.
Okay, you say aggressive behavior. What else? So in her case, there will be the proportion of animals showing aggressive behavior at IENA. The problem with the aggressive behavior that there could be, but often aggression has been shown to be really related to the temperament of single horses and dominance problem. So that will be not reliable enough. What do you think? Any idea, any suggestion, any question? Don't be shy. So.
dire en français, la présence de blessures pour les animaux détenus en groupe.
Can you translate for me? I don't get it. Wounds. Okay, wounds, yeah. Definitely, if the box is too small, they could hurt themselves, yeah.
Repetitive behavior.
Yeah, some behavior, what?
Yeah, repetitive behavior.
So the stereotypy, yeah. If, like, you know, yeah, they don't have space enough, they might show locomotory behavior. And yeah, they could be okay. So I like sleeping again, like, you know. Horses are particularly fussy animals. So, like, you know, they are never going to sleep if the space is not good, the bedding is not comfort, and they don't feel safe enough. And even if they are, like, you know, in a situation where often they are isolated, they might have problems. So I like sleep, and it's still not really super validated, and really wounds and stereotypy are good ABM. And about the sleep is, I mean, I always thought roughly that if I go in a place and I can see many horses sleeping quietly during the day, which they tend to sleep usually a bit more in the night, is a good sign. So, like, you know, they are able to really show this behavior, which is more kind of a positive welfare indicator. Instead, wound and stereotypy, again, negative, okay? They're really good, but they're more negative welfare indicators. So what about the thermal comfort? So at EFSA, we are getting crazy trying to make this a difference. You know, the thermal neutral zone is basically when the range of temperature where the animal does not have any effort in thermoregulation. So it's based basically more on, if you like, production animals. So, like, you know, is the temperature where within the cattle do not show any loss in productivity in milk because it comes from cattle. In horses that's been adapted and basically is considered like the range where the animal is still able to thermoregulate, so is able to keep the core temperature stable. And outside, and basically really they need to put a lot of work, and you know, below A they can suffer and die from cold stress, and above D they could have an heat stroke and die from heat stroke. But, you know, at EFSA now we are saying, I don't want an animal which is coping with the problem. So I want to actually make sure they are in the comfort zone. And this is why we're looking for B and C. So it's actually when the animal, you know, doesn't even need to activate any thermoregulation. So it doesn't need to start to sweat, okay? It's going to be able to cope, you know, but still does, you know, the fact that it starts sweating or painting, you know, it's still able to keep the temperature, but it doesn't mean that it's more in the comfort zone. This is why, like, the idea is try to understand really this space from B and C and make sure that the animals are kept within B and C. Clearly, like, you know, there are some variation. Our C is a range that goes between 20 and 25, and D is between 25 and 28. And you can still see that we are talking really of a low temperature. Horses are really good at cope with cold. They don't really cope so well with heat. And then I want to point on the humidity. So the perception of the heat, it really depends on the humidity. So I suggest you to learn, it's called the comfort index for riding, where it's an index created by FEI, where you sum the temperature and the humidity. And actually, you should understand if you can actually ride or no ride at all in that particular situation. And I can send more information to Jill. We could speak one day only about this. But it's good. And I think nowadays all the riding should have a weather station and try to have alert if the horses can be ridden or not. Like, like when you go to the beach, red flag, no bath. So red flag, no riding, something like that. So about the health, clearly, like, we can use a visual inspection. The wounds are definitely good ABM. And I guess, even my son is good to understand that bleeding wound, it's not a good welfare indicator, or like, the skin disease like that one. However, we should ask ourselves something more about the chronic injuries, wallet joint. How many horses in a riding stable do have swollen joint? Should I ride those horses? Are they in pain? This is the question. How can I actually try to figure it out? If they are in pain and this is the locomotory problem, they might have lameness. So you should at least learn to understand this lameness score. And clearly, like, if the horse show a lameness more than 2, you should call the vet, because riding a horse or even exercises a horse or move a horse, sorry, I'm a transport expert, with a lameness score more than 2, it's a welfare concern. So I teach animal science, and I think that all the people who are in charge of the horse, they should learn how to do a simple health check. Because at the end of the day, you are the person who decides to call the vet or not. So really, just basic stuff, like, presence of nasal discharge, ocular discharge, and heart rate, gut sound. That's basic skills that all the people who are in charge or take care of the horses, they should learn. It's I don't know if in Switzerland it's mandatory. I've never been seeing something like that compulsory around the world. Because at the end of the day, you are the person who decides. How many centers have a veterinarian living in the breeding center or in the racing stable? So often it's too late. A welfare concern is often veterinarian, I call it too late. And I've been in the practice for 15 years, and often I said, sorry, I'm not a magician. I'm simply a vet. It's too late. So I cannot do it. It's really too late. And this is why early diagnosis, I think, it's the best practice. But you can do an early diagnosis only if you learn how to check the health. And then we have pain, because one of the freedom is, freedom from pain. Pain is really hard. And Emanuele has done lots of study on pain. So assessing pain is hard, but it's really crucial. Sorry for this intermittent situation. So what is pain? Pain is defined as an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage, or described in terms of such damage. It's it's really hard to assess pain because each animal, each people does have a different pain threshold. And horses, you have this situation. There are really stoic horses. They might bear the pain really well, and they might even run with a lameness, and then after they won, they're super lame. But they, and others, they're we say in Italian, they have just a hair not in the right position, and they like colicking and stuff like that. So they are drama queens sometimes. But no, it's really important to learn, and also assessing pain is possible, and people who are taking care of animals, they should have some kind of a method to assess pain. And nowadays there are many pain scores. There are composite pain scale where you have physiological and behavioral parameter. We can have biomarkers, but also the horse Grimal scale, so like, you know, could be applied. Definitely, like, you know, what we can also now promoting is basically some new technologies. There are some studies which have clearly demonstrated that if you try to assess pain, and you know, and the horses rely that you are there, your data are no good. So, like, you know, the presence of the person affect the results. So possibly using camera and even better machine learning, so intelligence camera will be the future. There are many different pain scales. The majority of them are for adult horses. They only validated for fall based on facial expression is the ECUS FAP fall, and recently we've done a study to validate a composite pain scale in falls, which I hope it comes, yeah, this one. If you want to read, it's open access, you can download. And again, it's useful. I think learning how to assess health and pain would help a lot your horses in the future. Again, health is not only you know, physical health, is also mental health, and I guess there are some kind of reliable indicator of negative health, like the stereotypy, the presence of pain. We're still not really good in assessing positive mental states. There are some neurotransmitters like serotonin, oxytocin, which I'm sure you know, they are the pleasure hormones. But I think we really need much more research before be able to say that they really work. What about appropriate behavior? So this is the last criteria. Yeah? Yeah. So we have expression of appropriate social behavior, appropriate expression of other behavior, good animal relationship, a positive emotional state. So you can actually measure the time budget, so what your horses do in the day. Clearly, it takes lots of time, so this is why new sensors are good, because, like, you know, you can have, you know, like your smartwatch telling you how much you work, how much you slept, and so on, done for the horses and how much time it was eating. Stereotypy. You pointed a lot about stereotypy, so these repetitive behavior which the animal does without a meaning. They are really prevalent. They can be oral or locomotory. Oral might reflect a bad feeding practice. Locomotory may reflect improper housing system. The only problem that stereotypy often, when they start, they're really difficult to treat, and sometimes they are like a scare. So they never really go away. So this is why I say, be conscious. If I come here in IENA and I see a horse, you know, weaning or wind suckling, I don't know. I will not sure to point the finger that it's a IENA fault, okay? Because could be that was in the past of the horse. And often what's happened is that, like, you know, if they might mitigate in a better situation, but if the horse gets scared, it starts the stereotypy again, okay? So it's a kind of a scar that they have inside. So it's a bit tricky indicator, let's say like that. For the human-horse relationship, you can do avoidance distance or approaching test, and then Alice is going to tell more you about. And again, about the positive emotional state, as I said, it's hard. So I know the FEI wants a happy athlete, but I think we still need more work to do it before be really able to say that the horse is happy. what we do at EFSA, so the last 5 minutes, I have 52 now on my presentation, so I have other 8 minutes. No, I'll be short also because EFSA is difficult. So what EFTA does, we have a list of welfare consequences, which are all negative. So really, we're really not really good in that either. So, and like heat stress, cold stress, motion stress, resting problems, so you can see they are all negative. And all of these welfare consequences have a clear definition. Like handling stress, the animal experience stress and or negative affective states such as pain and fear resulting from human or mechanical handling. So, and what we try to do is also having high-level negative states. So apart the welfare consequence, then we have a list of these negative, again, welfare states, like fatigue, fear, frustration. And what we try to do is try to understand what are the risk factors. So basically, we're trying to assess a scenario, like transport. And then we try to figure it out what are the most important welfare consequences, like, I don't know, motion stress. Okay? And then we try to understand what are the risk factors. And then maybe for motion stress, it's going to be vehicle design, road. And then basically, we also look for animal-based measure, like, what would be a good animal-based measure for motion stress, maybe just balancing behavior. No? And then when we are able to identify these risk factor, welfare consequence, and animal-based measure, we are able to suggest some preventive measure. So we are going to say, okay, well, you need to plan your journey well. You should have a good vehicle. The animal should have a good space so they can balance. And then we try also to give some indicator for the inspectors. Then say, okay, when you stop the truck, then just look at the space around the horse so that you can understand, if the horse is good, or we tell the driver, put a camera and then watch your horses. Are they really struggling all the way on? That's something wrong with your way how you transport the horses. And basically, yeah, that is what we do. We try to do based also on different scenario. And you're going to find these are some output table for some husbandry system, like intensive, indoor, in a group housing, and then you can see the table, and then just an example that you have. So in conclusion, I think it's clear that assessing welfare is challenging, but is really important. It has to be anyway always multidisciplinary, and education of a horse is crucial, horse people is crucial. So this is why events like this one are, in my opinion, the best investment that I can do with my time. I can keep doing research, I can keep writing papers, I can even work for EFSA, but if I don't come here to teach you, possibly the rest of my work is wasted. And what I want to also point, the new technology, they should be still developed, but they might be really good tools that you could have, because since welfare is so difficult, maybe having some new technology in your riding stable or alerting you if something is wrong could be useful. And with this, I thank you for listening. I'm sorry for the flashing, but I hope I kept you awake.
Merci beaucoup, Barbara. Alors, la place pour une ou deux questions, si vous avez des questions, parce qu'après on a la pause, vous pourrez encore parler avec Barbara après, elle reste là. Hein. Est-ce qu'il y a une question? Et je ne vais pas vous dire oui. Non? Ania? Pas une question? Non? Bon.
Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, thank you.